Mhm.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for having a look at our second interview that Elisa Belliers and I have lined up. For those that don't know me, my name's Damien Porter, and I run Eat Well, Move Well. And joining me is Elisa Belliers, who runs Ultimum down in Mandurah. We're in Perth in WA. And with us tonight, we've got IFBB Pro Stephanie Trevino. I came across Stephanie not very long ago at all, and I was just absolutely blown away by her credentials. For those that know me, my background in bodybuilding and military, special forces, nutrition, and so on, and I've managed to get that all together as hopefully a pretty complete package. I don't often see that in the IFBB world. I don't see a complete package there, and Stephanie was exactly that. Stephanie is let's see if I get it right. We've got a Ph.D. student in organizational psychology. Is that right, Steph?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. A certified CrossFit trainer, sports nutritionist, and a mental coach. She's an overall NPC Figure champion and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. So really walking her talk, plus got some real science and research behind you. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for coming on. Okay, great. Well, maybe Elisa would like to start off. She's normally much better at this than I am.
Yeah, I would love to. Steph, I'd really love to say thank you so much for doing this interview with us. And I was the same as Damien, obviously being in the same sort of community, private community, coming across you, we were like, wow, your bio is amazing. And, you seem like an amazing human being without even really knowing you. And I just would love to know if you could tell us a little bit more about what sort of inspires you to sort of do all that you do and be all that you are.
Okay. I guess
Yeah.
the first thing is really, with fitness is, I didn't come from a very athletic background. I was never an athlete when I was growing up. I was kind of a nerd. I was like speech and debate captain. And, it wasn't until, my mid 20s when I really started working out and just doing fitness. And the reason was, I had a baby and I was overweight. I think I clocked in about 190 pounds. So I'm about 5 foot. So I was pretty large for my size. And, somebody just kind of told me, hey, you're unhealthy and you're not going to have a very long life unless you really start focusing on your health. And that just kind of catapulted me. I started working out first and I never really saw the results that I wanted. So, I once I fixed my diet and I started focusing more on nutrition, it all kind of started falling in place. Then I started bodybuilding and I was already in school. I was a business major, so I was doing all of this. And then I was working for a really great company, one of the largest cancer hospitals in the world, MD Anderson. And I worked in their wellness department. So I kind of had preview to, just everyday people that were, struggling with the same thing, health and nutrition and working out and fitting it all in. And it was a couple years, it was 8 years later. And I decided, you know what, let me just do this on my own. Let me people. And I never looked back. So it's been about five years since I've been doing this on my own and, been competing and I love competing. It is something that is so difficult for me. But I feel like it helps you learn so much about yourself. Because with bodybuilding, it's not like any other sport. It's just you. Like, it's only you. And you can have great coaches and great teams and everything, but at the end of the day, you're the one that has to do the work, and you learn a lot about yourself through that process.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I think that your whole inner game like really comes into play. And I think going from, I guess, where you began, overweight and unhealthy, like it really humbles you to then look back. Yeah, awesome.
Well, that's interesting to hear, Stephanie. And you mentioned a couple of things. You said health and nutrition, and that's kind of what I guess when I work through. We teach people to get a great body as a side effect of awesome health. But when I did bodybuilding and did all my competitions in the young days, it was the worst health you could have for that 1 minute on stage.
Right.
Completely different. So really nice to hear you say that. Okay, let's see where I'm at here. So I was going to ask you a question. How did you get started in your two research fields? How did you get started in sports nutrition and organizational psychology? And a follow-on from that, how do you see yourself using these in your career?
So what I actually did was, when I was working for MD Anderson still, I thought I wanted to be a personal trainer. So I started doing all of that. I started, I got my personal trainer certification, and I took a couple clients on the side, but one of the things that I really noticed was it's not as difficult to show someone how to work out. The hard part was changing not only their mental attitude, but also the way they ate. And so I was like, you know what? In order to be really well-rounded, I really need to learn more about the nutrition side, how to fuel your body correctly, how to get individuals to fuel their bodies correctly for their specific sport. And that's kind of where it started. So I was in Texas Women's at the time doing my master's in business. So I just kind of started doing nutrition classes there. And I learned a lot, but, kind of through my own experience, it was really where I learned the most about nutrition. And I really learned that every individual is very different. Our bodies are different. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think that that's kind of what's lacking in a lot of the dietitian and the nutrition world, is that most people subscribe to a one-size-fits-all approach, and they think that it should work for everyone. But you really have to listen to like the body and look at a person and be really in tune with what's going on with them to really be able to like fine-tune things. So I started doing that. Now for my PhD, that's kind of been like on my bucket list. It's something that I've always wanted to do. When I was in human resources, organizational industrial psychology is a big human resource degree. And so, I got my PhR, and I've always wanted to do that, because what fascinated me the most about that particular psychology is that it's work efficiency and it's team efficiency. And I run a really large team of over 120 female athletes mostly. Wow. And so, you can imagine the different dynamics, the different personalities. And so I feel like, with doing my PhD in psychology, it'll actually help them like be better versions of themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't, like, you're so fresh to us. Just hearing your story is just mind blowing. You mentioned a couple of things there. Teaching nutrition, teaching someone how to eat properly, a whole lot tougher than just teaching a bit of exercise, which we all started with. But also changing their mindset. I know that something I look at is the cycle of change in people. That classic psychology cycle of change, where they're not thinking about it, they think about it, they make a change, and then they drop off. So I'm guessing that you've managed to incorporate some of your skill set there to help your clients out as well.
Yes. For me in particular, I've gone through the experience, so it actually helps me relate to them a lot better. I know what they're feeling, when they get really low. I know, how it feels and what they go through mentally. And then even like post-competition, and any athlete will tell you, like, if they're training for something really big, when they're finished, it's like, what now? And so they almost go through like a little bit of a depression, because it's like, well, what am I training for now? And you kind of lose motivation. So for me, it's always been about identifying, the why are you doing this? What's your reason? And then reminding my athletes, like, okay, this is the reason why you're doing it. And that helps kind of keep it in the front of their mind, their whole reasons.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm hearing that so much more and more. What's your why? Such a great sort of point. Isn't it interesting? People like us, they see our photos on the internet and they think, okay, that they've got everything perfect. But we've been in the highs and lows, all of us, and that helps us relate to them so much better. Okay, well, I'll throw it back to Elisa now for the next one.
Yeah, well, I I love that, you know, you said that keto OS is like the missing piece to comp prep. Like, I'd love if you could just tell us a little bit more around that thought process, because I totally agree with this, and it really excites me that, you know, that you've opened up this conversation.
You know, one of the things about bodybuilding is it's very old school mentality. You know, everybody is kind of set in, this is the way and this is the only way. And I encounter that a lot. You know, just being a coach and having different athletes, you know, everybody's like, no, this is the way you do it. You know, you have to do it this way. And I don't believe in that. And so when I started doing my own prep, and I usually go like low or no carbs, a little bit higher fat, my body just likes that. My body responds really well to that. And so I actually went, I started doing, you know, no carbs, all vegetables, just for my carbs. And I was feeling pretty low, just like, you know, you are a couple weeks out from a show. You feel pretty down. You're mentally not clear, not focused. Your energy levels are not there. You're kind of pushing through everything. And Ricky was actually the one that reached out to me, and he was like, you got to try this. And I'm not a big supplement person. You know, there's very few things that I've ever tried that kind of helped in more ways than one. And so I told him I would give it a try. And by the third day, I felt like a whole new person. And I was amazed at like my energy, it was sustained energy. I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking pre-workout because I didn't feel like I needed any of that. And I was really surprised at not only the sustained energy that it lasted all day, but also that I felt very clear. Like my mind felt clear. It didn't feel like, we call it prep brain, you know, that mental fog. I didn't feel that anymore. And I said, okay, maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm like making it into something that it's not. So I actually had a couple of my athletes try it, and they said the same thing. And I was a believer after that. I was like, you know what, this is the real deal. And so now, like, I'm a big advocate for it. When my athletes feel like they're having a hard time, I'm like, I give them some of it. I tell them, try this. And it's been an amazing thing. You know, it hasn't hindered anything at all as far as like my weight loss or my drop. It's actually helped me. And I feel like this time when I get on stage, I feel like my physique is going to be the best that it has been. And really, that's the only difference that I've changed within the past couple of weeks was adding in the strength.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Yeah, awesome stuff. So I think it's just about, I suppose, opening your mind up to it. You know, like you said, old school mentality sort of says, you know, not to trust this sort of thing. But, you know, I'm so glad that like there are people out there like you that, you know, are open-minded and you know, help to spread the word out, because it's an amazing tool to use. And that, you know, it's helping so many people's lives in so many different ways, you know, so how can you not be open to that?
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, that probably throws me to the next one, Lisa. Really interesting hearing your responses there. So I guess I mean, I just listened to Lewis Velasano today from Keto Gains, and people think that you mentioned the bodybuilding, you know, they're stuck in their old school mentality, and originally at the start of the interview, you were saying people tend to get stuck in their boxes. But in fact, the experts are very well rounded because they read, they actually know all those other things. And Lewis Velasano, who is obviously massively ketogenic, and he says that's the way to do it. You know, he uses exogenous ketones as a tool specifically because he knows what they do. So my question for you, Stephanie, is how about the clash between sports nutrition? Because, I mean, I was taught 20 years ago at university it was impossible to use ketones as a fuel. So how about the clash between sports nutrition in the universities, your competition experience, and then the bro science that's out there? How are you dealing with that, and how have you handled that?
You know, for me, it's one of those things. Whenever you're in this kind of field, you really have to have a thick skin. And I always tell people, like, when they ask me or they're like, no, this doesn't work, or no, you can't do that. I tell them, look, this is my own personal experience. I do what works. And, I pay enough attention to my athletes that I know what works and what doesn't. And I know that there's not a one size fits all approach. What works for one person may not work for somebody else. And the reason is just because of all of the things that we do to our bodies. We change our metabolism, we change the way that our body functions, we change whether, fat versus carbs, we change all of that. And so our bodies are so smart, and people don't realize that they adapt so well. And I find it really fascinating that athletes' bodies adapt even faster. And I tell people that come into me, that say, hey, I want to do a show, or I want to compete in something, and I haven't done anything for 5-10 years, but I used to be an athlete. I tell them, once an athlete, always an athlete. And so your body just is ready to kind of take on whatever you give it. And I find it like, it's so, for me, it's like a little science project. All of my clients are like little science projects, like, this didn't work, well, let's try this. And this didn't work, well, let's try this. And so when people come at me with, oh, well, you can't do that, or you can't do this, I tell them, look, I know what works for my clients. It's my own personal experience. And the longer that I do it, the more kind of validity I have to that, because it's like, I've been doing this for 5-6 years, and look at our success rate. With us, our team, we have had such great success within such a small amount of time. I mean, we made 5 pros from the ground up, people that had never competed before, and now they're pros. And we did that within, 2 years. So that's an amazing thing. And I think that anybody that, can kind of talk down to that, because they do, they come at us all kinds of ways and say a lot of things, but, our track record really speaks for itself.
Yeah, wow, exactly. And I find a lot of those people, they tend to be quite dogmatic and not possibly as well researched. And when you hear a real researcher answer someone's question, they're normally like, well, it depends on this, this, and this. And you've stated exactly where we're at. I mean, the science of epigenetics and DNA and so on in the last couple of years, I mean, it was $10 million to do a DNA test 10 years ago. Awesome. Elisa, have you got anything to finish on?
No. Just thank you so much for your time. I think this is awesome. I think we should keep it short and sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Unlike me as well. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing to get to know you a little bit here and to hear your answers and to hear your story. And just going to love sharing this out to the world. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. And I'm excited. I'm excited about being kind of on the forefront of this whole movement. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks, guys.